A lot of changes are expected as we head back to the office. Hi, everybody. Karen Roby here with Daphne Leprince-Ringuet for ZDNet. Daphne, you've put together a great cover story here to answer a lot of the questions and to ponder some of this as to what things are going to look like in the short term and long term as companies try to get their workforce back into the office. And I guess in some instances, not back in the office, maybe working from home more too going forward. Just start here. What is it that we can expect to see in the short term as we're trying to, put all these regulations into place to keep social distancing in mind as we head back to the office?
So, as you said, there's going to be a number of short-term implications to returning to the office because employees are going to be returning to the office without a vaccine on the immediate horizon. So, essentially, with a pandemic still ongoing. So, the main focus for employers and businesses in the next few weeks and the next few months for those employees that will be coming back to the office will be to ensure their safety. So, to ensure that we can still practice social distancing while we are at work. So there's a few really straightforward things that can be implemented and that usually governments have said that employers should be thinking about in the next few weeks. For example, employers will be expected to deploy glass or plastic screens between work desks, potentially to rearrange work desks or their office layout so that desks are at least 2 meters apart. Have some sort of indication on the floor for traffic flows to make sure that employees don't randomly bump into each other when they need the bathroom, for example. Shut communal areas or do some works on air conditioning to make sure that air isn't recirculated. So a number of really practical things that are likely to be implemented very realistically in the next few weeks and months. And then on top of that, we're seeing a number of new technologies that are obviously overwhelming the market at the moment, some of which are likely to become perhaps everyday gadgets for employers and employees alike. So an example is thermal cameras, so technology that would enable employers to sort of screen employees as they come into the building and immediately alert if one of the employees is showing symptoms of COVID or higher temperatures at least. Other technologies are sort of mini contact tracing local apps that would let employees become aware of the fact that they're getting too close to another colleague, for example. I've even seen technologies from lighting companies saying that they have developed a product that can remove bacteria and virus from the exposed areas. And then lastly, of course, we can expect everything that can be made contactless to become contactless. So, of course, automatic doors everywhere, but even things like being able to call the lift from your smartphone or order a coffee from your smartphone or flushing the toilet with a signal of your hand. So all sorts of things that are already developing and very likely to be seen in most workplaces in the very short term.
Okay, and Daphne, when you talk about some of these changes, whether or not we can expect them to stick, because obviously people are very concerned, and going back will be met with some anxiety as people aren't sure what to expect, because as you said, of course, there is no vaccine at this point. So do we expect that some of these changes will go on, will be something that isn't just for the short term?
Well, certainly, as long as there is no vaccine, these changes will remain for sure. And then from talking to architects, I think what a lot of them were saying is that even once the crisis has passed, it's likely that some of these changes at least will remain. As employees become more aware of the fact that the workplace could be safer, could be healthier, could be more hygiene oriented, it will perhaps become sort of a key feature of office buildings. Just in the way that restaurants get hygiene ratings, for example, office buildings could get hygiene ratings as well. So architects are already thinking about buildings like that would have more exterior spaces, for example, that would have more stairs and less lifts, and that would have, for example, antiviral materials incorporated into the building to germ-proof the building as much as possible. And some architects are even thinking of taking inspiration from scientific labs, for example, which are obviously designed to be germ-proof, and incorporating those learnings and this knowledge from science labs into the office building. So that's one side of things, that's an important side of things. But there's also another side to this equation that designers and architects are already pondering, and that's the idea that will employees even want to come back to the office? And if they do want to come back to the office, what will they want to come back to the office for? Obviously, this has been a giant working from home experiment, and studies already show that up to 3/4 of the workforce doesn't want to come back to the office full time and wants some sort of flexible working. So it means that the nature of the work that we're carrying out in the office will change. We won't be coming to the office for the same reasons as before, and as a result, the office is likely to change as well. And so what designers and consultants are thinking mostly is that we will be coming to the office mostly to carry out those tasks that we can't carry out at home. So that's collaboration, team meetings, cooperation, communication with your team members. And so instead of sort of walking into an office that is typically a sea of desks that is dotted with breakout rooms or meeting rooms, that ratio might be reversed. So we'll have a sea of breakout rooms and collaboration rooms dotted with desks for those who do want to come in to do that focused work. So that's something that designers are already thinking about. It's something that's obviously going to impact the layout of the inside of the office, but it's likely that it's also going to impact the actual building. Will employers need less space? Will buildings become smaller? Will we depart from the sort of skyscraper model that we've known until now? It's a lot of questions that are already sort of being required to be answered by architects and designers who are already working on the buildings of the future.
Yeah, and when you talk about that, the being impacted in general, cities will change as a whole. The landscape, how they look, and potentially impacting really long-term trends here for cities as a whole.
Yeah, like diseases have shaped cities ever since diseases have existed, really, and this one will be no exception. What's interesting is that this disease might shape the outskirts of cities even more so than city centres themselves, because as workers start adopting flexible ways of working, they will be less keen to commute to the workplace, and therefore there will be less of a need to live near the workplace. So it's going to be a very appealing prospect for workers who until now had to sort of cram in city centres, overcrowded city centres, to potentially be able to work in more in more residential areas and less crowded areas. So we're going to have a decentralization of work with people working from home more, and perhaps even the emergence of trends such as mini local offices. So I was talking to a city planner, for example, who was telling me that we could expect sort of mini WeWorks to emerge here and there, for people to sort of log in and have a small office space outside of the office that would be an intermediary between working from home and office working. On the basis of WeWork. So surely there will be a lot of innovation that will enable these new working patterns. A lot of things that we don't even know are going to exist yet. And it's only a matter of waiting and seeing at this point.
All right. Well, definitely things are changing and will continue to, Daphne. Great cover story here that you put together for us. And we hope all of you will check that out on Tech Republic and ZDNet. Thanks for watching.